Thanks for joining me on Retail Today. Today I'm talking to Ann Ruckstuhl. She's CMO with Manhattan Associates, and she's here to talk about the 2023 Unified Commerce for Specialty Retail benchmark that was prepared with Manhattan Associates, Zebra, and Google's participation. Ann, welcome. Now, who are you and what are we talking about today?
My name is Ann Ruckstuhl. I'm the CMO at Manhattan Associates. And the reason why we're here, we're trying to give the retailers some help, not pontification, not opinions, but actual performance-based benchmark and the insights that come from that to how to be really at the top of the game, to service and hopefully make a lot more money today's omni-channel consumers, because all of us are channel agnostic. Grandma, me, definitely my kids, right? But it is not that easy to actually know the customer, regardless where they show up, pick up the conversation or the transactions, whether it's buying or returning, where they left off, so that you serve them, hopefully delight them, not waste their time, and allow you to achieve your maximum business objective at the same time.
I love that. And we talk about unified commerce, right? This idea that it's channel agnostic. Can you explain you're explaining this to a third grader on over a hot chocolate. How could you explain unified commerce?
Is the ability to conduct business anywhere, anytime, as if you never stop talking, that you continue that conversation and the interchange and that transaction, and you pick up exactly where you left off.
I love that. And, so many people, I think, get worried about, unified commerce, you're going to be tracking me and all this, but it's like, it's really just saying, what if you had one conversation, no matter where you were? Then it's kind of like, well, that'd be cool. And who wouldn't want that? Right?
And it's actually pretty good, because today with our data privacy and today with our GDPR, especially, in some of the other countries, right? I think all the consumer need to be really disciplined and be very wise to know that there is a trade-off. You have to agree to be known. Some people may decide to stay anonymous, and it's your option. But if you decide that you do business with certain retailers and that you have, a group of friends on, Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, and you only want to let yourself be known to that subgroup of people, you can control it. So first and foremost, I would say consumer need to be smart about when to let their presence known. But when you do let your presence known, because you trust that brand, let's say, because now we're talking about, business, we're talking about commerce, and you opt to say that, yes, when I shop with Nordstrom and when I shop with REI, I'm always there. And I honestly don't mind for them to know who I am by just giving them my mobile number, right? So when you walk into the store, you don't go dark. As soon as I know they know my mobile number, at some point in time, all of these store associate would not be fixed, hopefully, to a terminal, or God knows, we still call them cash registers, don't we, huh? Yeah, we're so far behind so many countries, Bob. I mean, shoot, when I was shopping a Hyundai department store 20 years ago in Korea, they don't even have cash register. Everybody has a mobile device. You just have to tell them who you are. They pop up your record. They follow me around as I travel, shop, and I become the commerce of one instead of throwing myself into the humanity of God knows what. And they can see my preference. They can see the couponing. They can see, whatever wait list I'm on, and put together my shopping list very efficiently with guidance, right? Here we are in the US, we're just really recently starting to do that, right? So if I decide to let my presence known, then I think this will be a game changer for retailers, because they know exactly what my lookbook, my wish book, my wish list, my shopping cart, so we all get these great emails, which I think it's wonderful for the retailer. Say, Ann, did you forget something? You have 3 items in your cart, right? And by the way, the good ones even tell me oh, by the way, there's a price change. And by the way, there's inventory availability change. Now the store, by the way, this item you've been waiting for, now it's available, since they know who I am and they know my radius of willingness to travel, they can even tell me, oh, by the way, the store down the street now has the item. Now when I go grocery shop, I just add another stop. All I'm saying is that I think unified commerce, it's kind of a nerdy way to describe commerce in this contemporary era of digital connectivity. And that whether I'm shopping on Instagram, whether I'm shopping, honestly, I still call in occasionally. A few brands that we all know still very good at catalog and 1-800 numbers, or I'm on their e-store, on their e-commerce site, or I'm going into the stores. I will be very impressed when the brand, as soon as I de-anonymize myself, they go, oh, Ann, oh yes, that one green sweater that you've been looking for, oh my goodness, it's now available and I can get that to you. I don't have it in the store. So you do endless aisle without using the word endless aisle. But me as a sales associate, I can do so much and it will be delightful for me. Then I don't have to do the homework. And they will say, I can ship it to you from another store because I don't have it. Or I can have it directly to you from one of my fulfillment centers, the big distribution centers. And by the way, if you go over $100 more, you get that 25% discount. I mean, my goodness gracious, it will be delightful. So this is my roundabout way of saying that I think unified commerce, when done right, is meant to delight. And when you delight, then how much differentiation do retailers have nowadays? This will be a game changer for a lot of people. So anyway, we did a benchmark and we look at it, we go, well, the winners, it's literally like a strength test against 286 tests. So it's bench press, it's sit-ups, it's arm lift. It's like, all right, you ready for the Ironman? Okay. And we tell you exactly what part of your regime and your everything need some work. It's the swimming, not the cycling, right? And it's very interesting because people need that performance-based, I guess, analytics. And it's fair, it's quantifiable. And now you can prioritize. Otherwise, it can be overwhelming. What part of my commerce is not doing right? Is it the shopping, the discovery, and the search part of my business that I'm not wowing people and not giving people visibility? Is it the whole checkout and payment experience? Some people only want to pay certain ways. I mean, if it's not on my wallet, I don't buy. I mean, there's like, it's very interesting nowadays. It depends on, there's a bit of a generational thing, I think my kids probably is like wallet, Venmo, that's it. And I'm still trying to go, I know I have Venmo because I have PayPal, but that's not how I'm more like credit card. I'm trying to get the Zelle thing figured out because some people only want to pay via that. But anyways, my point is, we all have different preferences and the brand kind of have to be pretty smart to figure out of all the gazillion different payment methods, which one do your consumer care about? How do you provide that convenience? So anyhow, without going into too much, but this is, I think the industry, we owe the industry a performance-based benchmark. So it's empirical, it's completely fair. And that we did this by 8 shopping trips per brand.
Well, what I really liked about the benchmark is you didn't do it as where's my brand, right? All I care about is where are we? That's it. Where are we? And it's like, no. It's a tool that anybody could use. Yes, you're showing the laggards and the ones that are succeeding. But I thought one of the interesting things for me was promise and fulfillment. So, well, the first thing I read, 75% of retailers offer flywheel of fulfillment options. Oh, great. 18% allow modification post-purchase. Wow, that went down a lot. And then allow shoppers to change fulfillment from buy online, pickup in store to direct shipment. A lot of these things, like the other one that I thought was the 82% of it's the chat one. What about chat? How so many people offer chat, but a lot of times you can't go past the bot. And so your point was, hey, that's a big point because it's not personal. That's really what I think you're getting at in looking at the benchmark is how much personal are you leaving through these systems or not making things available? Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, it does. The chat is smart as what you feed it, right? Because it links against a knowledge base. But you're absolutely right. I think the brands need to be thoughtful. I think we do need to, at some point in time, and say, this is the Autobot chat, right? So they kind of know. But for us, we turn on chat as soon as we have live folks available to be an assistant. You can turn the chat into live, and it shows. So I think, yeah, there's so many things that, like, to be great at what you do, it's a very nuanced thing. It's not a checkbox. It's not saying, yeah, I do delivery. Oh my goodness, like, honey, there are nuances in delivery. It's like, what mode of delivery? How many choices of delivery? Is it on bicycle? Is it on scooter? Is it on truck? Is on, depends on the size of the packaging. And
I would add, is it important? So many people try to solve the last mile, and we saw so many businesses go into that in the last 2 years because of the pandemic, and then they're all shutting down because, like, we can't make money at that. And more importantly, consumers did not respond that they would pay for it. So how does a retailer know what's important when I read the benchmark, and how do I prioritize it, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think ultimately it's like life is working out in such a way there, the whole supply chain has so many participants in there. And you can fine tune, I mean, just on transportation for us, that's what we do. We do smart routing. Right? So how do you go from point A to point B in the least amount of time with, you have a bunch of condition you can put in with the least miles traveled, right? Least amount of, we don't like shipping air, so least amount of space wastage, right? The space could be less warehouse utilization, so don't hop. By the way, a yard is part of your storage because just because you're outdoors doesn't mean. And then also the utilization of a truck, because when the truck rolls, I mean, it's like, honestly, the machine learning that goes into how do you pack a truck. So the thing that gets unloaded first is in line with demand. All of those, I think, it's getting us to the point where we just look at the outcome and the input. If the outcome is not good for business, for last mile, if customer satisfaction is not up and your profitability has suffered, you probably want to work backwards and tune and tweak it. You see what I'm saying? So it's not necessarily one piece of it. I think we need to look at the outcome.
That's right.
Yeah,
I think that's really important. I think one of the things that you guys had a case story about, Giant Eagle reduced their empty miles by 8% and improved the queuing by 7%. Now, some people would say, like, well, what's the difference that make? What does that make when you are able to improve load optimization and lower inbound costs? I mean, that's huge, isn't it? I mean, in man hours, I don't know if we can say man hours anymore, but can we say that it's so many costs that roll up into that for a big company, that those little amounts, that's almost 10%. That's significant.
Yeah, I think they can look at their annual fuel consumption. They can look at the labor cost associated with it, because backhaul, because this is what's interesting. It's like when you put a truck out there, it's not just delivery, it's picking up returns now. So the return logistic is now part of, so thou shalt not send a truck out empty, nor come home empty. That's basically how we operate.
But that's a
right?
huge mind shift, isn't it? For a lot of, we
Oh
just
yeah.
think of shipping to the store, and now you've got reverse logistics that have got to be part of that, right?
Absolutely. And I think people can return. I mean, we are making everything easy. You can return to, the local store, the UPS. You can return to so many places. You can drop it off. And they also do pickup. So I think the ability to have that flexibility to know that if you're going to deliver, people do this a lot, especially I know women probably guilty of that more. Maybe I'm saying something wrong because sometimes it's that size, right? Sometimes certain things run large, sometimes certain things run small, and you try a few times to get to the right one. So it would be good if you're doing delivery, they can do both that and pick up on the wrong size, right? At the same time, they can match it and give you that choice so that I don't have to necessarily do another trip to drop it off someplace, and sometimes multiple ones
See,
as I eventually, get to
I
the
think
right
that's
size.
the thing that comes out when you look at the benchmark is in a lot of ways, it's talking about these are the friction points, right? These are the things that are going to wear you down. These are the things that, yeah, it's not a big deal. It's just a little squeak, right? It's like the smoke alarm. It's going that little thing, but we got time, right? But if you add it up, in how many parts did you go through in the benchmark? I forget how many actual uh, parts are there that where
We
people were
went
graded on?
through on this, kind of like inspector number 12 list, stretching the underwear. We did
At
286.
286. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And if you go into the site, I think you have the link to the microsite, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then you will see how many falls under. So there are four major categories. So there's the search and discovery, there's the cart and checkout, and then there's the fulfillment and promising and fulfillment, and there's customer service, typically post purchase. But it goes into like customer service, like returns, issues, and including self service as well. So the 286 is, scattered across those four. And then each score within each capability is based on the average of 8 actual
Sure.
shopping trips. So we did 5 online, different parts of the day, so we don't have intraday bias, and then 3 physical store purchase and returns, so that we can exercise the suburb store, the burb store, urban store. So you have that, difference as well
Balance.
for, right? Exactly. So I would say this methodology is unique. I believe it's the industry first because typically people do survey. Survey is self-reported. And you all know, I think my stuff is great. I mean, yeah, some of us can be self-critical, but my concept of what's good or excellent may not be the same as yours. So this is now standardized and it's templatized. It's all the same.
Well, that's what I really liked about your survey. Excuse me, benchmark,
And
because so many surveys to me, I have a question mark. It's like, oh, shoppers prefer 99% to shop on their phones, done by a phone company. You're like, yeah, that's not really value, right? But to be able to actually do mystery shops, that's what I would call them, mystery shops in stores and online, you're like, wow, that's valid. Because if you just did one, that's a picture. But when I've got 8, I've got a movie. And now you see the whole thing and you're like, wow, that makes difference. And I just wanted to touch back to one thing. I think you had talked about, there was a case study of something in Australia that had reduced their fulfillment cost by like 24% through packaging better. I mean, isn't that something? We all talk about sustainability and we hear like, oh, Gen Z, it's all about sustainability. It's like, great, except Shine is one of the biggest companies around, right? And the whole idea of everything being shipped in cardboard boxes, there is this duality of the consumer. So being sustainable, I think you can listen to a lot of the noise, but if you look at just the practical matter, right,
yeah.
to cut down on that. So what steps or case studies, have you come in contact with? Because that's a real cost, and it's a cost to the environment, which I think everybody is talking about these days.
This is kind of interesting. We're in April now. When is Earth Day? April 22nd, right? And my concept of Earth Day is lots of tents out in the parking lot or the walkway. When I was at HP or Symantec or whatever, we always celebrate. People care. They really do. But it's not one day a week. It's 365 days a week. It's coming up, right? And what we're realizing is in the retail space or commerce at large, sustainability can be good business because we actually realize 20% of the consumer are kind of saying, yeah, they're okay with the practice, the sustainability practice of the brands that they do business with. Most of them are not happy because they don't know what you're doing. And I think when retailers in particular, right, disclose your sourcing information. If you have, ThredUp or Pre-Loved, right? PacSun does a great job with that, right? And I think H&M just signed up for ThredUp again, or first time. The ability to return something and give me an incentive, right, for my old pair of jeans as I get something new. People, it's a thing. My girls, they go thrifting all the time. They want to buy things that's vintage because it's not a fashion statement as well as a virtue. And they want to do both because they really think we handed them a bill of terrible things.
I think that's funny you say that.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine, my nephew, he graduated from UCI, and the valedictorian speech was, our generation looks at yours as you never finished the equation. You're like, yeah, so we pollute the rivers. Well, and I thought that was so brilliant. It's like you didn't complete the equation. You just didn't go far enough to go, but if we do this, like I live in upstate New York, the Hudson River is going to turn green when the car manufacturer paints the cars green, right? Well, that's acceptable. And I think what we're realizing is there's a lot that's not acceptable. And so to your point, how would a retailer tell their fans, their people? I mean, look at us. Is it like that? Or is it something that would be on a box to let you know 30% what? I mean, any ideas? And this is just you as a consumer or the CMO?
Oh, yeah. For sure. I mean, it goes from the whole supply chain. Let's start with sourcing, right? So do be mindful of sourcing as much as you can so that you are dealing with, if you're a grocery company, fresh food, there's certain fish that's off the chart. I mean, you shouldn't be eating them because they're in danger. Monterey Bay Aquarium has this cute little fish chart that I carry with me and literally say, you eat this, but stay away from this. And when I go shop, if you go to Whole Foods, they actually have a comply list. They tell you where they come from, right? And then certain fish they just don't touch. It does matter for food to the product that we buy, to the clothing and the merchandise stuff that we buy. So disclose that because the consumer actually want to see it. It makes a difference when you put that in your PDP, how you sourced it, how you manufactured it, and whether there's recycling and retransaction return compensation involved. And we mentioned the Australian company, the Super Retail Group, right? So there's stuff retailers can do. How you get the merchandise to the consumers. If they have one order that has 5 items in there and you ended up splitting them into 5 shipments, I'm sorry, shame on you. Okay, you should be able to give them the choices, the consumers. They can wait for extra day, but they all combine into one. So minimizing split shipment. All split shipment means is that one order become multiple truck rolls or plane rolls or, whatever the delivery methods are. You are causing a lot of inefficiency in transportation, not to mention the carbon footprint. So that is important. Another part is just because they hit pay now, honestly, does that mean they can't change it anymore? Because not just buyer's remorse, but there's some of that. We always go, oh, shoot, I forgot this other thing, right? So if you can get that grace window to modify their order a little bit longer, because when the stuff is actually loaded onto a truck, maybe at that point in time, you can't change it anymore because it's taken off. But if you can let people modify the order and have your warehouse, the pick list, the flow optimization created in such a way that it's not just one directional, it's listening to all the modification coming in and be able to adjust that pick flow. How do we pick something to pack it? You have that ability. Honestly, that's what technology does. So use it, right? So that you can give people that grace period to change their mind. That cuts down on how many round trips not to mention the packaging material that's involved, the labor needed to do another order yet again. I mean, you can kind of picture that, right? So they're tangible things that retailers can do
And the
for sure.
friction. Yeah, and the friction to do it. I mean, geez, I remember I made some order and I tried to fix it. I don't know even what it was. I had to try to find the phone number. Find a phone number on a website. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
And then call this or this. Then they're not there. And you're like, but the order's going through. And it's
Yeah.
silly. But I remember thinking, I will never use these people again. And isn't that the point of this benchmark, is to say, how many sales are you losing to a competitor for something you're not even aware is bad? And that's what this report has illuminated. What's one shocking part that illuminated to you when you first read it?
Oh, there were so many aha moments. Well, I would say for me, a lot of this is order tracking and notification, the really basic things, right? That just letting people know what's happening with your orders. We see a big difference between the leaders and the laggers. Delivery with accurate promising, it is very important. You know, if I was a furniture company, and honestly, it's like I'm finally getting that table because my in-laws are coming for Easter dinner, and Easter doesn't change, and I really need my table like today, right? And you can't do accurate promising. We're seeing the leaders what deliverable promising day accurately. 92% of the leaders do that. The laggers is 18%. So 92 versus 18, that's pretty big, but we can come back to you, Bob, with a list on what we think are the kind of the shockers across the whole buyer's journey, if you will.
Yeah.
But yeah, quite a few.
And
And
even going into that with the delivery, I just was talking to a guy on my podcast the other day, and he talked about how Thanksgiving was coming up. Almost the exact same story you have, as was waiting for Thanksgiving, and it's 3 days before, and it's not coming. He gets the notification, I'm sorry, and the owner calls up and says, you probably got the notification. I'm sorry. I'm going to deliver you a dining room table that you're going to have. The chairs are here, but we're going to give you this. I'm going to take it back when the new one comes in. You don't have to worry about what condition it is. We're there. And I thought,
yeah.
wow. And he said, customer for life, that happened 15 years ago. I would never recommend anyone but that. But to
Yeah.
your point, if only 18% are allowing you to see it, that does mean someone physically should be monitoring it. And that's even bigger, right? For that owner to call, that's great. Yay. But that means someone had to monitor all those steps instead of it being automated and being accurate. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. There are a few things that we find interesting is personalization. You would think in today's age that at least if I go to somebody's e-commerce site, they, once I either de-anonymize myself or they can see my browsing activity history, even if they don't know who I am, they would at least have a recommendation section and say, because of your past browsing history, we think you might be interested in XYZ. You'll be surprised. They don't, most of them. Another part is empowering their store associates to do their job. A store is not a store anymore. We found out during the pandemic that retailers that survive are the ones that are very agile, that when they know the mall is closed, the stores are not receiving shoppers, it serves a purpose. It became a micro-fulfillment center. This is how Paxons of the world not only survived, they thrived. And nobody lost their jobs because shoppers are not coming into the stores, but they turned all their, I can't remember, like 360 some stores around the US, right? They all turned into fulfillment centers because even though mall traffic has gone down to zero, their e-commerce traffic was like through the roof because these kids, instead of studying, they all shopping. If it's my kids in California, they're buying like swimwear, surf gear, they all shop, they're surfing, and PacSun is probably their favorite brand. So they're shopping. So what happened is because they have this digital dexterity in terms of supply chain and order fulfillment, right? The store associate came into work during the pandemic. Nobody lost their job, but instead of servicing customers, they're fulfilling. And then they got each store to be what I call the buy global but local, right? They're able to ship effectively because they can, triage and figure out which store is closest to the consumer. So the shipping becomes what they do. Now that the pandemic is over, I hope we'll never go through it again. So I think it's a norm now. The store is not a store. It's not a store. It's where you fulfill. It's where you showcase, showrooming. Is where you service. Is where you process return and do customer engagement. And it's all of those. So yet the sales associates are still stuck to that, whatever you call it, the terminal, right? And they usually two or
Cash
three
wrap
of them.
desk, any number of terrible things you might think from the 50s.
So I think the concept of, point of transaction. So the point of sale is very kind of passe. It's point of transaction, the point of commerce now, which has a human manning it. You need to give them CRM. They need to know who Bob is. They need to know everything about you so they can service you and respect your time. And so I think we're seeing that personalization, but it starts with empowering your store associates to do so much more, because guess what? They can. And with the labor shortage we have right now, if you don't empower them to do that, one, you're not going to attract them. Two, you're just unnecessarily escalating your labor cost, right? So I think it is important. So that part of it is key. And comes with that is, for me, inventory is the name of the game for retailers. If the inventory is not on the shelf, if it's not ready to be shipped at the time that consumers need it, you don't have a path to revenue. You can't book it. It will be illegal for you to book that revenue is not actually fulfilled, right? Transact and done. So inventory is your lifeblood. And if you don't have visibility or control over your inventory, you got a problem. And we do see only 29% of the retailer actually provide real-time inventory statistics in their product listing pages, for example.
That's really important. Well, this is a great place for us to end. I appreciate you joining me today, Ann. And how can we find out more about the benchmark and what we should be doing here in retail?
It's a retailbenchmark.manh.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining me, Ann. I've had a lot of fun, and more importantly, I think you're providing the service. So Manhattan Associates is giving us the tools. Now it's up to you to use them and move out of being a laggard and find out what the other ones are doing. So thanks for joining me today, Ann.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And everybody should go and have fun and get your performance and outperform your revenue growth by 6 times.
I love that.
By becoming a leader, there is a call to action here because you're going to be promoted.
I love that. Thanks, Ann.
Yes. All right.